Welcome to the fire weather briefing for September 12th. And I'm going to read the disclosure statement here. This meeting is being recorded. By joining and participating in this session, consent is being given to the recording. Please keep cameras off per NOAA Privacy Act statement. Starting with the lightning over the last 24 hours, we did have quite a bit of lightning over the southern Idaho panhandle down into the Blue Mountains, and even over the Palouse area up towards the Spokane area. We had quite a bit of lightning overnight, and Idaho Zone 101 was the hot spot with just about 100 strikes. Also, a few up in the Okanagan Highlands as well as far northeast Washington. Precipitation amounts out of this was highly variable, but given the very moist atmosphere, there were some wetting rains under the core of these storms. But those wetting rains were very spotty and limited to where those thunderstorms were tracking through. Looking at the matrix here for the next 7 days, good news is that from fire weather concerns, the concerns are fairly low over the next week. Over North Idaho, we are looking at more thunderstorm activity today for some elevated conditions, but otherwise the humidity levels are going to be increasing, and overall the fire weather concerns are fairly low over the next week. I'll pass it over to Sam to talk about Western Washington.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, so generally, as he kind of said too, we're expecting low fire weather conditions, at least for the next week right now. Right now, we're looking at cool and cloudy, really today and again Saturday morning with Western Washington under onshore flow. And we have got excellent humidity recoveries overnight as a result of that as well. Our next system, it looks like it's going to be on Sunday. It's looking at like a frontal system that's going to bring widespread precipitation to the west side with chances of potential wetting rains to the mountains. We do have a slight chance of thunder in the wake of the front. However, this is pretty minimal at this moment. And then the next thing that we'll be looking at is next week when we start to see that warming and drying trend Tuesday and Wednesday with a ridge starting to build into the area. At this time, however, it's generally, we're not expecting too much in the way of it being too concerning. Right now, the RHs are still looking to trend above thresholds, even if we might see a brief period of offshore flow. But that's something that we're going to continue to monitor. So we've kept it green for now, and we'll continue to see how that trends over the next couple of days. And then I'm sure Jeremy will go into this, but there's still some discrepancies in the pattern late next week. However, it's looking like if we do get that warming and drying trend, it may be short-lived for us on the west side. So generally speaking, low fire weather conditions expected for our side.
Okay, sounds good. Looking at the current satellite image, there's a very broad area of low pressure stretching from Nevada all the way up to southern Alberta. We're now on the back side of that low pressure system. It's finally starting to move east, but still enough residual moisture and instability on the back side of this low to give that threat for thunderstorms today, mainly again over North Idaho, but could see a few in eastern Washington as well. And then here's this big, broad trough with a very deep fetch of moisture off the coast. But what that will do as it encounters the ridge carries some uncertainty. And here's a look at that. When we go into Sunday and Monday, there are still some model differences to a low that moves across the region. Some models are taking it more to our south over Oregon, and some others are tracking it further north across southeast Washington and the central Idaho. And that makes a difference as far as how much precipitation we get. This particular solution here would bring a better chance for more widespread shower activity and precipitation to eastern Washington and North Idaho. But if this one pans out here, precipitation may be more spotty across the eastern Washington and North Idaho. So we're still trying to dial in that part of the forecast. And then as we go into later next week, while it does look like we'll see high pressure returning, as Sam was alluding to on Tuesday and Wednesday, by the time we get into late next week, it's about a 50-50 split whether we'll see a low pressure system move across the region or whether we'll have more upper level ridging over the area for warm and dry conditions. So uh, quite a bit of uncertainty as we go towards the latter part of next week. So let me move now into the rest of the dashboard items. We'll go back to full screen here. Looking at the hazards, the only hazards we have out right now is hazards issued by the Department of Ecology for some air quality alerts for Chelan, Ferry, Stevens, and Pend Oreille counties until further notice. Looking at the weather, I'm going to step through the minimum relative humidities to just show the trends over the next few days. Our humidity levels are going to be up a little bit today compared to what we've been seeing for eastern Washington and North Idaho. But as we go into tomorrow, we'll see a trend towards drying conditions east of the Cascades. And then when that Sunday, Monday system comes through, regardless of whether we see widespread precipitation or not, we'll definitely see an increase in the relative humidity levels, which will be good news for the fires out there. And then as we go into day 4, so this is as we get into Monday, we continue to see some elevated humidity levels. So I wanted to hint at that, and then I wanted to spend more time just looking through at the specifics for this system Sunday and the Monday. So we'll see the winds increase out of the south and southwest across the Columbia Basin with some gusts in the 20 to 30 mile per hour range. And the chance for wetting rains increase as well. Again, there's still a fair amount of uncertainty, so the chances for wetting rains at this point are generally around 20 to 40% over much of eastern Washington on Sunday. And Sam, is there anything you would like to add on this graphic for your area?
Yeah, just kind of highlighting that the wetting rains, at least for the west side, may be a little bit higher here as that system moves in. So looking at generally anywhere from 35 to at least 45% and some isolated, even higher amounts in the mountains or chances in the mountains.
Okay, sounds good. And then the chance for thunderstorms on Sunday, not a high chance, but about a 15 to 20% chance. Given the high humidity levels, any storms would definitely have rain with them. So that is good news, and that's why our fire weather concerns are fairly low on Sunday, even if we get some lightning out of it. Moving on to day 4, the winds come down a bit, chance for wetting rains. Sunday night and the Monday morning is when the chances are highest on the east side of the Cascades. That's when that system is coming across with about a 20 to 40% chance over much of the area. And the chance for thunderstorms will be decreasing as we go into Monday, with some low chances over the northern mountains and over the far southeast. All right, we're going to move on now to the QPF. I thought I would look at this day by day. So here's today showing the best chances for wetting rains from thunderstorms over the Idaho Panhandle. For tomorrow, really not much, although it looks like late in the period, some precipitation approaching the coast there. And then as we go into Sunday, into early Monday, that's when the chances for a wetting rain increase across the region with a light precipitation. Again, if that low pressure system moves further south, these amounts could be more isolated or scattered in nature. So I would not count on everybody getting precipitation at this point, but there is definitely the potential for these amounts shown on the graphic here if that low pressure system moves more right across our area. And then as we go into day 4, day 5, that's when the focus starts to shift more towards the east. All right, moving on to the trends, I'll pass it back to Sam to talk about the west side.
Thanks, Jeremy. Yeah, so I've highlighted Ohanapekosh here. Generally is a good indicator of what conditions are expected to look like, at least for the west side, for the next couple days. We're generally expecting cool and cloudy conditions today, and again on Saturday, even though conditions will be dry. But that onshore flow is really going to help keep conditions cool and RHs above any like critical or elevated thresholds. Going into Sunday, our chances of precipitation do start to increase pretty significantly, as you can kind of see by the graph indicated down on the bottom. And we are expecting to see lingering showers potentially into Monday, but then we do start to at least warm somewhat and dry somewhat again Tuesday and Wednesday, as you can kind of see by the RHs and the temperatures. The RHs do start to dip again a little bit, but again, at this time, they do remain above any critical or elevated thresholds. So that's, again, something we'll be monitoring, but going into late next week, it looks like that starts to mitigate a little bit as well. But I know there is still some discrepancy there, but something to watch out for on our end.
Okay, sounds good. We'll move on to Northeast Washington and look at Kettle Falls here, and we see still some warm, dry conditions the next few days, and then temperatures trend downward with that weather system Sunday and the Monday, with the increase in relative humidity, and then a warming and drying trend as we go into Tuesday and Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday really remains to be seen what's going to happen there. And then for McGee Peak in North Idaho, we see relative humidities remaining fairly elevated up in the Idaho Panhandle, up in the higher terrain, with minimum values only getting down to around 40%, although these might be a little bit high, as this location has been getting down to 35% or so, at least back on Tuesday, Wednesday was still fairly dry, and as that low pressure system moves out, we could see it dip a little bit more than forecast here, but overall conditions remaining fairly elevated. And then you can see definitely that cooling and moistening trend as we go into Sunday and Monday, and then the warming and drying trend after that. But like the west side, we're not seeing any, real critically low humidity in this type of weather pattern. So that is good news. All right, moving on to 8 to 14 day outlook is favoring increased odds for above normal temperatures with about normal precipitation across the region. So with that, that ends our fire weather briefing. Sam, anything else you want to add before I stop the recording?
Nope, I think you've got it all.
All right, I will stop the recording now.